GM, it's Chris. And if you've been struggling with creating content, then and being consistent with content, I will speak about that in this video and kind of like what I found the hacks to stay consistent with content, creating good ideas as well. Oh, and by the way, if you see me hanging on like this is an AeroPress, so I'm creating my morning coffee. And that is actually the first tip or the first insight I will talk about is creating a habit out of creating content in order to stay consistent. Because I know so many people struggle with always, being on the content hamster wheel and trying to come up with new ideas, fresh ideas to create content about, and then doing the actual content and blah, 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 blah. So there are three things that have worked for me and is working really well right now because I've had problems with this myself. And you know what? Everyone has it. So this reminds me of a conversation I have with one of my online coaching clients, and I'm doing her email copywriting for her so that she can focus on other stuff because she has limited bandwidth. That's what she came to me with. Is like, Chris, I don't have bandwidth to every single day pump out content to come up with a new fresh idea. And that's what I'm doing for her. So shameless plug, if you want to work with me and you need copywriting marketing strategy help, then just reach out to me below and we'll see if we can work together. But for creating content, actually being consistent and sticking with content creation, because you want to do it because it has asymmetrical gains. I have another video on that, on why you should create content, even if no one is watching it. But there are three steps, I believe, to make this happen, and this is what helped me a lot. So the first is to make it a habit. As you can see, I just created a fresh cup of morning coffee, right? This is a ingrained habit for me to create coffee. I love coffee, right? So there is an inherent reward already and a trigger for that. And if you've read any type of habit creation, habit formation, you will know that there's always a trigger, then there is an action, and then there is a reward in order to set a habit. And creating content is actually all about creating the habit of creating content. And another mentor told me, Dan Coe, I believe, that if you are consistent with creating content and staying consistent with it, the easier it becomes to actually come up with fresh new ideas, angles, getting into the groove. And making it a habit is so key. That's why I create a video every single morning and then I schedule it and publish it, right? So the first insight is to make it a habit. And creating a habit might seem like a lot and it might seem scary or harder than it looks and feels, but I would say that habits is the single most thing that has helped me in all realms of my human endeavor, which is even in health, right? And staying in shape and going to the gym consistently. I have a good body. I'm up there in my 30s past, right? I might not look like that, but I have been consistent in staying in shape. And I can almost contribute all of that to habits because I don't need to force myself to go to the gym. I am just the guy who goes to the gym. So if I don't go to the gym, it feels weird. So it's both a habit, but also like an identity shift in the background. So creating content, perhaps now that I am just thinking about this logically on camera live, is that it might start with an identity shift that, hey, I am a guy who creates content every single day, or a girl. And I believe that that belief in yourself that you are someone who is consistent with content is something that is born out of action, meaning that you start creating a habit of being consistent with content and coming up with an idea. That reinforces the belief in yourself that, hey, I am actually a guy or a girl who is consistent with content and I am someone who creates content, right? And then that becomes a positive spiral loop of feedback so that you reinforce the habit, you do the habit, you get the identity, belief, and shift, and then you go around, around, around. There's a lot of scientific background behind this. Now that I think about it, and I remember some stuff that I've read and consumed. So the first thing, if you are struggling with content, you can't really stick with content. It's always been a thorn in your side, and it's been that for myself as well. So that's why I'm sharing this, because I'm finally in the groove of creating these YouTube videos. It feels natural, it feels light, it feels easy, and it has asymmetrical gains attached to it. So it's worth my time because it will grow also my business. Now, the second thing is, let's see here. The second thing with why you can't stick with content is the ideas, I will say. Ideas is what helps you to stick with something and talk about. So for me, for example, I have a list of ideas that I have jotted down, and the ideas come from a lot of different places, like what I have done perhaps for a client, what's happened in my life, past experiences, anything that is kind of geared towards a problem and that I have some kind of solution to, or I know I can point people in the right direction for them to find the solution themselves. So having a list of ideas to talk about makes being consistent with content so much easier. And, just sitting down and trying to think of an idea and then film it at the same time, usually for me, it doesn't really work. I need to spend some time actually collecting ideas. So you don't create ideas, you collect ideas. It might be that you read a book. It might be that you went through a course and got some brilliant ideas that you can share in your own perspective, right? And in your experience, and that becomes yours in that way. So, and that work, this is tip number 2, is to collect ideas the day before. I know a lot of entrepreneurs who, before the head hits the pillow at night, they sit down and they think about what they will do the next day, and also collect ideas that they have either seen or talked about, stuff that just happened, right? And they collect those ideas, they write them down on a piece of paper or wherever you like to take notes. And that helps your mind and your subconscious mind, once you are at sleep, to process that, think about that a little bit without you even knowing it. And then you might wake up, you look at the list again of the ideas that you've collected and like, okay, I will talk about this today. And then you're off to the races. Your mind has already done what it's supposed to do. And it becomes so much easier to stay consistent with content. You actually want to be consistent with content and to churn out a good piece of content, which is helpful, insightful, valuable. Yeah, so that was number 2. And number 3, I will say, to stay consistent with content and actually get into the groove and do this thing so you can actually start to grow your business, is to talk about topics that are related to your business, but how should I put it? You should talk about topics that light you up for the day. So if you have this list, you have the habit of, this is the time that I create content. It's triggered by something in my life. I do this thing together with it, and then I get the reward, which is for me a morning coffee. You have the list that you have prepared the night before, or you're just adding to it throughout the day. But then, in order to make this as lightful, as playful as possible, you go through the list and you just feel in your gut, and you just feel in like, okay, what actually do I resonate with to talk about today on my list? While I'm looking this, I'm looking at my own list. That's why I'm looking down all the time. But pick something that shines the brightest to you. Like, what do you feel like talking about today? Because that will help you to deliver so much better content, and it becomes so much easier to sit here and talk for a while about a specific thing because that stood out to you that day. It might be that another day you're like, no, I want to talk, I don't have any good ideas about that topic, I don't want to talk about it, this shines brightest to me today. So you want to speak about topics that light you up for the day, or you feel like, yeah, I'm feeling this topic today, boom, camera, action. That's what I will do, at least to stay consistent with content. And that's what's helping me a lot to produce these videos on a daily basis, actually. Obviously, there's more around it to set up your environment so it becomes easier to get into a flow state of actually producing the work and sitting down and focusing on the task. But that is for another video that I can shoot. If anyone is interested, just comment below and let me know if that is something you will want me to cover next. But yeah, that's what's worked for me to be able to finally stick with content, finally be consistent with content so that I can grow my business, so that I can build leverage, touch more people's lives in less time. That's the essence of leverage, right? So try it. Another bonus tip I just want to shoot in here before we wrap up is if you are struggling with filling out your list of ideas, then you can pretty much use ChatGPT or AI, but not just asking it, hey, give me tips, because you will usually just get generic tips, which is kind of like meh. But what you can do is you can actually feed it with stuff that you have created in the past, or you might have books, or you might have, any kind of real resource, which is a part of your brain. You can feed it, and from that you can extract big ideas and, process them, work them up. If you need help with AI prompts and stuff like that, just reach out. Maybe we can work together. I can show you how to do it, but I think you can honestly figure this out yourself. So yeah, those are the 3 tips I will say to never run out of ideas. Even if you have a limited bandwidth as a coach or consultant, if you build these habits into your life, if you build these systems around producing leverage, then it becomes quite much easier. But for those who actually have little time, they don't really want to do it, they want to outsource their marketing to someone so they don't need to spend brain calories on that, then reach out and let's see if we can work together. All right, enough plugs. See you in the next video. Bye.